East End is rich in history, culture, and serenity. But that's not what has brought people out here for the past 100 years. They come because of the beach. In this series, we will celebrate our amazing beaches and hear the stories they each have to tell.
There's Main Beach, there's Maidstone Park Beach, there's Girard Park, there's Indian Wells, Atlantic Avenue. And it's important because each of these beaches is different and has a different history, just like Montauk has a different history than Springs, which has a different history from Amagansett, which has a different history from Wainscott and the part of Sag Harbor. We are not the upscale, fashionably trendy, and unaffordable Hamptons. These are not the Hamptons beaches. It's Amagansett Beach, it's Atlantic Avenue Beach. And I think the more we do this, the more we talk about these individual places and their individual history, we maybe can eventually get rid of that terrible moniker or appellation, whatever you want to call it, the Hamptons. People came here, we know now, in the late 1840s and 1850s, people were coming to East Hampton. And one of the reasons we know this is Cornelia Huntington wrote a book in 1858 called Sea Spray, which was a thinly veiled story of East Hampton. And in August, this place was packed with people. And don't forget, when Clinton Academy opened up, that advertised how wonderful this place was, and that's in 1795, or 1800. They were advertising this place as being close to the ocean. So in the 1840s and the 1850s, people were coming here, and they could rent a room. Boarding houses began. So by 1865, there were people going down to the beach, and they had to find ways to accommodate them. Everyone thinks this place didn't take off until the railroad came or the artists came, and that's not true. Then in the 1920s, the Sea Spray Realty Corporation was formed by a group of Maidstone members because the Maidstone Club wouldn't build any cabanas. So they built some cabanas down there. Then when the Maidstone Club built cabanas in the late 20s, then they sold it to this guy named Austin Culver. And he ran it for a while, and he expanded the place. He built the pavilion. He made more bathhouses. And then he lost it to a corporation. Then he got it back again, and then he was trying to sell it. This guy, Austin Culver, and others who owned it would be telling the village each year, a lot of people didn't come down to the beach this year, so we don't have enough money to hire lifeguards, so we may have to close the beach, or we may not have to have lifeguards. So Culver kept saying this, and the village board realized that this would be a wonderful tourist place, or if it was sold, they wouldn't have control of it. So this went on for a while. And 3 times the people in East Hampton voted whether to buy it. First, for $35,000, they voted that down. Then it was $24,000. They voted that down. And finally, in 1937, by a vote of 83 to 77, the village taxpayers voted to buy the Main Beach Pavilion for $20,000. And boy, it's a good thing they did. Look at it. Look what could have happened down there. And then you had people like John Drew and Thomas Moran and Dr. Herrick. They had their own bathhouses, and they wheeled them down to the beach. John Drew had one which was a replica of his house. And we've lost it. We don't know where it is. The Moran house has Thomas Moran's behind there that they're going to try to renovate, but they used to wheel them down there. Locals went to the beach to go fishing. Did we have enough idle time to do that? And remember, here's the classic. Nobody really went down the beach or built anything down the beach. That was stupid, because the first storm comes, your place is going to get washed away. And that's why all that land was bought very, very cheaply by people who developed the bathhouses and stuff down the beach. That land was not considered valuable. You couldn't grow anything on it. So did locals go to the beach? I think they probably did more to take people to the beach. I think there was a wagon that met up by the Hook Windmill on certain days, and they would drive down people, people down to the beach. And remember, when you went to the beach, you changed into your bathing suit someplace, like in your bathhouse, and then you went in and around the water. Then you went back in the bathhouse and changed into your regular clothes. You didn't, very rarely people sat on the beach all day in their, quote, bathing suits in those days, which covered everything. Dr. Everett Herrick was one of the founders of the Maidstone Club, and he lived right on the corner of Montauk Highway and Main Street, by the light by Town Pond. If you go to the light and you make a right, the first house on your left up a hill, Pudding Hill it's called, that's where Dr. Herrick lived. And he would go into the water and decide if the temperature was correct enough for you to go in swimming. So nobody went in, so Dr. Herrick made his determination. Well, Devon is English, again. Don't forget, Devon came about because in the early 1900s, people from Cincinnati, Proctor, from Procter & Gamble, and several others went hunting up where Cranberry Hole Road Bridge is. We were on the way to Montauk, that whole area. They went hunting in there and they loved it, and then they looked out and they could see the ocean. Oh my goodness, this is wonderful. Well, the locals didn't want that land anymore because when the railroad went through, it scared all the animals away. So there wasn't a great place for hunting. So they sold that land cheaply, so they built those 7 houses down there. They built 7 huge houses, only for the summer. And then I think the Devon Yacht Club was like a clubhouse or even a little casino that they built. And then it morphed into more because the people at the Maidstone Club didn't have a dock. So they used the Devon Yacht Club for their boating. I think that's how that developed. Well, the thing about the beaches is pretty much, except in a few cases when people push the envelope, they could look like they did when the town was first settled. And so can you imagine that? As people say, so many other things have changed. And you know what hasn't changed? I think it's people's affinity for the ocean. Do you know that we try to go down there every day, and no matter what the weather, there are people down at the ocean, either walking on it, sitting in their car. In fact, there's a group of people that Loretta and I go with every day around 2:30, 3 o'clock. They go to Main Beach and sit on the pavilion because you don't have to go into the water, and you can bring your own beach chairs and sit there. So this affinity, now years ago the ocean was important because it was a source of food. But now I think it's a source of enjoyment. How many thousands of people come here for the ocean? They came here for the beaches from the 1850s, and they're still doing it today. Now, how's that? And you know, even if there's something soothing about the ocean too, I think. Walking along that beach, your bare feet in the sand, hearing the waves come in. It's not like a lake, I'm sorry. I'm glad we don't live in Indiana. Where do you go? The beach has been a sense of enjoyment from, probably the 1840s and the 1850s, and that's what brought other people into this town, the early summer people who came here, who built those huge houses up in Lily Pond Lane, they gave a lot back to the community. We may not have had those people come here if it wasn't for the ocean. And if it wasn't for those people, there might not have been a guild hall. Clinton Academy would have been, so we wouldn't have the library. And look how many houses some of these people saved. Mrs. Harry Hamlin, a summer resident, saved 4 or 5 different historic buildings. Where did we get the money to buy Home Sweet Home Museum? Who are the people who pushed for that? It was the summer people. Those people gave back so much to our community besides supplying jobs. So that ocean now has really changed or preserved what we've had.